I'm Hermene Hartman with another episode with Reverend Jackson on Conversations. Today we're going to talk to ministers, and we're going to talk about mentoring, and we're going to talk about being on the road. Reverend, now you have traveled, and on the road you have mentored people. Tell me about life on the road with Reverend Jackson.
First of all, how to get on the road.
How do you get on the road?
When you travel, you begin to make relationships, make connections. And like I suppose I want to have God with me to learn to grow and meet people. When Dr. King was killed, I knew most of those friends. I was from the churches. I've been with them in the youth department. So it's just teaching young people the ways of the road, how you survive the road. Mm-hmm. The fact is, all girls have so much in common.
It was a teaching the model.
Teaching the model.
The network.
Yeah.
Connected.
Key is relationships.
Mm-hmm.
I want the guys to travel and meet people.
So they could learn.
And build relationships.
Mm-hmm. So with us today, we have Reverend William Hall of St. James Community Church and was a member of the youth division, and you traveled with Reverend Jackson. And also Bishop Tavis Grant, who's the National Field Director today at Rainbow Push, and is the minister of the Greater First Baptist Church in East Chicago, Indiana. Well, let me start with you. You traveled on the road with Reverend for a while. Yeah. What was your learning? What was your mentoring? What was your association?
One of the things that I learned, amongst many things, number one is a work ethic. If Reverend was up at 4 in the morning, that meant I was up at 3:30 in the morning.
You're trying to stay ahead.
Trying to stay ahead. You had to go get all of the newspapers. You had to print out all the emails. And not only work ethic, but compassion. There were times in which literally some days 3 or 4 cities in one day. And no matter how many people we saw, Reverend never was rude, never was above someone, never gave off that aura. So it was just a compassionate touch to anybody that he came in contact with. And then lastly, looking at the bigger picture, I'll never forget we were in Morocco, coming back home with Doc to be exact. And I was on the phone dealing with something. And when I hung up the phone, Reverend looked at me and said, well, what was that about? And I told him the situation. And one of the famous quotes that I repeat 99 times, and people think it's mine, but I tell them forever, is that he said, the only way an eagle gets bit by a snake is if it stops flying high and walks on the ground. And so it was just moments like that, something bigger than whatever it is that I was facing, and watching him and how he would look at something and look at the bigger picture. And so just looking at life from a lens that most wouldn't even look at. That's what I learned.
So you see great energy.
Absolutely.
High energy. He got more energy than anybody.
I'm still trying to follow that.
We still can't keep up with you. Tavis, what's your experience been as a mentee with Reverend Jackson as you have initiated and built your ministry?
It started in 1988, and there were two dynamics to Reverend Jackson. There's Reverend Jesse Jackson, the civil rights icon, and then there's Reverend Jesse Jackson, the candidate. And they are separate and distinct, yet connected to one person. And I think not only do you encounter his energy, his keen sense for logistics and audience. With any number of people who are running his schedule, he knows his schedule. Is not a technologically savvy person at all, but knows everything. Name, address, location, what time. We were traveling with Reverend Jackson during '88, and at that time there was any number of people in the media pool.
This was the political campaign.
This is political
presidential campaign.
Presidential campaign. We're at the Admirals Club at O'Hare, and Reverend Jackson is meeting with us. His personality has no timing to it. It is always in and out. Those of us who are traveling with him are always attentive to when we need to leave, how we need to leave, who we need to leave with, because Reverend Hall has been very kind. Reverend Jesse Jackson will leave you. And if you've never been left by Jesse Jackson, you've missed out on an opportunity.
Now this is with
I never got left.
This is with Secret Service.
This is Secret Service.
This is with
this is
a
room
film
service,
crew, a media crew,
it's
about
Secret
250
Service, room service, or any type of service.
Because they're airplanes, they're on airplanes.
That's true.
And people have to respect their schedules, what they're doing. You have to be totally immersed in this to do this work. Love it. Don't love it, you'll get tired of it. It's not a job, it's a mission. So when I go on the road, I'm going to the mission. If one inspires somebody, direct somebody. I go as their guest. And I have to respect their needs. So once I address those needs, I feel I get fulfillment.
4 years working with Reverend gave me substance, gave me insight, gave me something to say, gave me an opportunity to learn how to organize a church. And that was the beauty of it.
I came to know Reverend Jesse Jackson in 1980 as a student through Push Excel, to then be a volunteer and a staffer and now a national representative for the organization. So I have a very intricate relationship that matured me theologically and socially. There were books that Reverend Jackson traveled with that may be Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, might be Howard Thurman, maybe Langston King, maybe Dr. King. These books were mandatory. Then there were several folders of notes. He has a handwriting that only to this day he recognizes. It's a special code. It's not Morse code, it's Jackson code. But a part of it, Hermene, is the people that he, from Otis Moss to Jasper Williams, the individuals they talks to how around the country to develop thought. And then you learn in traveling with Reverend Jackson how to become a speech writer. Because on an airplane, on a train, in a car, he'll say these two things to you. Not pull out your cell phone, not pull out your tape recorder. He wants to actually see a pen and some paper.
Yes.
And he's in a yellow, white, blue paper bag. He is obsessed with that process. But what you learn are the fundamentals of that. You have to learn the fundamentals of that. We were required to not just get the newspaper. We were required to read the newspaper. This new group, I don't know what they're required to do, but we were required to read the newspaper. Then we were required to identify articles in the newspaper to submit to him for relevance and almost why are you here was almost validating your existence in the process.
Now, Will, you had an experience in South Carolina.
Yeah.
Tell me about that with the flag.
But back to these newspapers. I bought 3 newspapers, one for Reverend, one for me, and then the one that I wrote up that I gave to him, in addition to one that he read. Reverend's mother, when I first met her, first of all, very hospitable. And, when I traveled with Reverend, Miss Helen Jackson, I love to, watch Reverend, but I just knew there were certain times that Reverend needed his time or whoever. And I'll never forget the first time I met his mother. I walked out of the room, made sure he was good. Didn't stay far from the room, but she brought me back in the room. But we took a many trips to go see his mother, and then we would go do whatever else was required of us. So when the Charleston 9 happened, it was 8 funerals
in a day,
and Reverend was there at both funerals, comforting every family, and flying back to see his mother in Greenville. And we were just there for that moment. But I'll never forget, he went to the governor, Nikki Haley at the time. He looked at her and said, the flag has to come down. And I'm looking at Reverend like, he just told the governor that the Confederate flag has to come down. And we literally would spend the morning with his mother in Greenville, drive down or fly down, and would lobby all throughout the state capitol. And the day in which the flag came down, Reverend had gotten a call that we're going to vote for it today. We're going to vote for it today. We were literally in the hospital. Reverend sat there. He spent time with his mother. We flew down, and that was a 23-hour day. We were up for 23 hours. And literally, it passed in the middle of the night. And Reverend was up again at 4 in the morning, having been up 23 hours. And
Reverend, you got, they can tell me that. They was talking about 20. I've had some 48 out. Why you was late on them? You know they got labor law.
Exactly. And to see that flag come down, I'll never forget, we literally witnessed that flag come down. And that was monumental. That was the work. When I say Reverend walked that aisle, literally lobby.
You did the work. See, that's what people don't
That's right.
get.
Right.
It's the work. It doesn't just happen from a press conference. It doesn't happen from a press release. It doesn't happen from a TV interview. It happens from the work. And that's what you all are saying, is he taught you how to do the work to make it happen. That's the social activism that comes with the theology, that comes with the philosophy, and you put all that together,
Jesus
and
is-
that's a winning
His
case.
first sermon was, "I come to bring good news to the poor and set the captives free." And from that framework, everywhere we went, at least 95% of the time, it wasn't vacation. It wasn't we were, out to just have fun. It would be a treat if Reverend said, "Hey, we're going to go to this event." But when we were at the event, we were still working. Because, Reverend, I need to meet with you. I need to talk with you. John, get this person on the phone. But that lens of bringing good news to the poor, setting those who are bound by systems of oppression, setting them free, that was a framework in which I saw Reverend bring that scripture to life.
Likewise, some of my most memorable moments do include Reverend Jackson attending to his mother. He was not Reverend Jesse Jackson. He was not presidential candidate. This was son to mother. Equally so was his relationship with Mrs. Jackson and his family. You get a real sense of the depth of his own personal humanity,
His love.
and caring for the relationships
It's called love.
that are close to him.
Such stories, such life experience, such changing.
But it's all in the spirit of serving. I think many people looking from a distance sense that there's some sense of celebrityism or being an icon. I've seen Reverend Jackson ridden with him in dirty, dusty trucks. And I've ridden with him in limousines. The most common denominator is he doesn't change. He has that bottom-up way of life that still exists today, that gives you a real sense of what the cost of serving.
I met Al Sharpton 12 years old, his mother, running me. Most kids at Al's age are trying to be kind of a basketball player. I want to preach.
Yeah, I want to be a minister.
And so, Al, the hard working man, said right today. When I was out a radio week, 12 television, he serves. Because needs the base of organization, service is power. You have to serve. We can all be famous, we can all serve.
But Reverend, we're talking about social justice and we're talking about the public things. We've talked a little bit about the family things. But I'm going to tell you something that's always been very impressive to me, in spite of a very hectic schedule. Not a busy schedule, but a hectic schedule. You go see sick people in the hospital. You visit the sick. And you go do funerals. And they're funerals from bottom up. The funerals from a janitor, from a kid, maybe to a congressman. But that has always, and you stop your schedule. You tend to the family, not just go to the funeral, but tend to the family.
The movement is my life. Life is an unfolding sermon.
Reverend, where do we go from here? What's the American future? 2020, we're approaching the end of 2020. It's been a tough year.
63 in Washington. Then there was only one black elected official in the whole South. And there was nothing in Atlanta, Georgia. They talk about Tuskegee experiment. They have a black official in Tuskegee. Not as a black mayor of Tuskegee, and black mayor of Birmingham and Selma and Montgomery. And he never saw a black man in Atlanta.
And Georgia.
62 black congressmen today. The world is so different today than it was then. They were faced with pandemic 19, COVID-19, and COVID-16-19, when we came on slave ships. And yet, we'll make it. All the protocols, distancing and hand sanitation and masks, they really do work. There's a vaccine now. People using the Tuskegee experiment. I won't take it. I'm going to take it. The option of not having some medicine, the lead scientist is a black woman. So these guys are bad about Tuskegee. And it's not just for blacks only. We hate this course because of our living conditions. But we should not be afraid to tremendously when we're sick.
That's right.
I think equal to that is the legacy of Reverend Jesse Jackson. Reinstating the Voting Rights Act, expanding it and making it better. In the midst of this pandemic, making health care both affordable and accessible. You know, warp speed raises some concern, but nobody has concern about the cost. And the cost of health care has been a real battle and fight for Reverend Jackson. We've got to use this pandemic, and what we learned is that they can make health care affordable and accessible to everyone. We've got to tap in the wheel to do that, to not just make people available of vaccine, but there are other therapies and other means of being much more proactive and preventive in healthcare, and that too is part of the Jackson legacy.
We've treated 250,000 people since March. 7 testing sites in the community works out there with Sean Penn. And they baby diapers, which are in this room today. Food stamps, you cannot buy food, you cannot buy diapers with food stamps. Gone or alcohol in the diapers. That doesn't make sense. So people can give diapers. And mothers, daycare, you have to have 6 new diapers a day. $80 a month. On fixed income, you can't afford $80 a month for diapers. They walk around wet, they get disease, they get rashes and all that.
It's cold.
So again, serving matters. Little stuff that makes sense. Big stuff is White House. Diapers for a mother or a baby, a big deal.
On that note, we're going to say thank you.
Thank you, Reverend.
Thank you, Will.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tavis. Thank you, Reverend Jackson.
Thank you, Reverend Jackson.
And at this time of the year, you just heard something quite powerful and beautiful to serve. And I guess that's maybe what 2020 has been all about, is to teach us all one way or another
How to serve.
how to serve.
That's right.
Thank you. We'll see you next time.